Hi everybody, Steve here again on Mr. Chuffy84. I hope you're all keeping well. It's movie review time once again. And today going back to 1969 and to not just a film but a musical, which I have not seen, although I know the musical, or at least the songs from the musical, pretty well for two reasons. One, first and foremost, is because my dad has the soundtrack album to this particular musical, which he's had for many, many years, and so I got to know the songs pretty well through him listening to that soundtrack album, even though I'd never seen the musical. And also, secondly, because when I used to run a male voice choir, here in the UK, in the Midlands. I used to sing with them, and then I became the musical director when their musical director left. I was MD for them for about 8 years, and we did a medley of songs from this particular musical. I'll come on to which songs in just a moment. But I still never seen the film. Well, just recently, in the past few days, I finally got myself, I found a DVD copy in a charity shop, funnily enough. That's where I found it. And so the musical that I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is not the most celebrated of musicals, although it is still well known, and that is the Western musical Paint Your Wagon from 1969, starring, as you can see, Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood, and Gene Seberg. So Paint Your Wagon. So the songs I knew pretty well, and so the songs that were in this medley that I conducted the choir for, and I used to sing it as well. We're talking about songs like I Talk to the Trees, Where Am I Going, which is the opening song and also the finale number, Wandrin Star, of course, They Call the Wind Mariah, and Hand Me Down That Can of Beans. Great songs, a lot of fun songs in this musical. So as I said, I knew the songs, but I didn't know the film. Well, what I didn't realise before going into this film, this musical was written by two musicians, so music and lyrics. Alan J. Lerner, who wrote the lyrics for the songs, also wrote the screenplay for this film adaptation, and Frederick Lowe, who wrote the music for the song. So you would often associate them as Lerner and Lowe. That's the same for the musicals as well. Well, Alan J. Lerner, because this was on the stage originally, as is most cases, of course, with musicals, it's on the stage and then a movie adaptation is made, and that was the case for Paint Your Wagon. Well, Alan J. Lerner himself decided, for the movie, I'm going to change it up slightly. So what the film version is going to be, it's going to be slightly different to how it was on the stage. And what he did was, and this is one of the sticking points with this movie, although I've never seen the stage production, and to be honest with you, I would love to. And after watching the movie, I thought to myself, I now wish I'd seen it. I wish I'd seen the stage version first, because this is, even though for its rating, I don't know if you can see it, PG, yeah, it is quite an adult musical in its themes of bigamy and prostitution, and so that's what you get in Paint Your Wagon. Nothing graphic, obviously, because of its certificate, but you can hardly say that even though there's no bad language and nothing graphic, but there is talk of bigamy and prostitution. It's hardly a family-friendly musical, even though the songs are fantastic. So I wouldn't recommend this as a family musical, to be honest with you, just purely because of its themes, especially the prostitution thing. Anyway, so the movie itself. Well, here we go again, folks. Going back to the Transformers movie. I know this is a long, long time ago, just over 50 years ago. But this movie, which also includes an intermission that they used to have back in the day in cinemas, it used to be an intermission halfway through the films, 2.5 hours. So quite a long sit through for a musical. There are plenty of musicals of that length and work pretty well. This one, okay, it's all right at that length. It's too long though for its story, which is this adult version, or if you can call it, of Paint Your Wagon. is for its story, it doesn't warrant that length at all. It really doesn't. And basically, it's a love triangle, as you can probably guess by the cover, between Lee Marvin and Clint Eastwood, who fall for the same woman, played by Gene Seberg. The story, for what it is about a town that is completely male dominated. No women live. I'll just put that down for now. No women live in this town, and on one day, this Mormon and his two wives travel through this town, and all the men see these two women that are married to this Mormon, and they can't believe that because this man is married to these two women. And why should he be married to these two women? Why can't somebody in the town have one of these women? And so they decide to obviously the Mormon gentleman himself actually agrees eventually to say, oh, okay, I'll put one of my wives up for sale. This is the story, folks. And so they bid for this woman. Lee Marvin, who plays this drunk gold prospector, I believe he is, completely smashed out of his head throughout most of the movie. He puts in an outrageous bid. He will double the bid of whoever puts in the highest bid. I'll double it, and he's saying it while he's smashed out of his skull. And he says, "I'll double it," and then he collapses in a heap. So he doesn't really realise what he's done. He has actually put in the highest bid, and so this sort of makeshift sort of marriage then takes place very, very quickly between Gene Seberg, who plays one of the two wives of the Mormon gentleman, marrying Lee Marvin's character, who is completely oblivious to the fact that he's marrying her. All that stuff, and then of course what happens is, in the course of Lee Marvin's character being married to Gene Seberg, Clint Eastwood's character, simply called throughout the movie called Pardner, he falls in love with her as well. And so so when Lee Marvin's character realised that Clint Eastwood is in love with her as well, they were thinking about, the two wives idea. So they all agree, wouldn't it be a good idea if, why don't we be a three? A marriage of three. Why Gene Seberg's character says, I'll be married to both of you. That's fine. I can have two husbands. That's the story, folks. That is the story. It's not a good story for a musical. Not in my honest opinion. There are musicals with quite thin plot lines. This is not one of the best ones for a musical. The best things about this movie, I'll tell you now, the songs are magnificent. All the songs I mentioned earlier, plus ones such as Gold Fever, that's a good song. Trying to think of any others. No, I'm sure. Sorry, there are others. There's quite a few songs in this musical. There should be as well for the length of this film. But the songs are brilliant. One of the best set pieces. Oh yes, and then what they do is later on in the movie, they realise that this is where the prostitution theme comes into place. Is when they hear about six Parisian ladies travelling through the town, and Lee Marvin and everybody in the town vote the fact that they should go and kidnap these six women, hijack their coach, and bring them into the town. While they do that, the whole community build some brand new buildings, including what is not referenced as a whorehouse in this film, but that's exactly what it is, with gambling and booze and everything else. So full of sin, basically, this town. And that's where it leads to another song. Here it is, No Name City, which is sung by the pastor character who preaches the good news to the town and saying to everybody, you are full of sin, and come to see your wicked ways and seek forgiveness, etc., etc., and etc. and so that's what happens. They bring these women to the town, and so that's where the prostitution comes in. But as I say, as a story, it's not great. It's not a good story for me. Songs are good. The best sequence of the film, funnily enough, is that sequence involving the hijacking of the coach to the song of There's a Coach Coming In. The way that that's filmed, and they built the town as well, that is well done, actually. That's a good sequence. It's one of the best sequences. But and makes use of the wonderful location work and the widescreen format. This film works very well in the widescreen format because it gives you the vistas, and they look wonderful. The photography in this film is really, really nice. So that's all fine. That's absolutely fine. And the other big set piece of the film is the finale, where because Lee Marvin's character has been bearing tunnels with some of his friends in order to search for gold dust. Because there's plenty of gold dust in Demnar Hills. Not in Demnar, not in Demnar Hills, but in the town underground. So they build loads of tunnels, with actually realizing that they've actually weakened the foundations of all the buildings in the town. So what happens is, once they've dug all of the tunnels, all the buildings collapse in what is a fun, silly but fun finale in many ways. And I thought that was a good, it's not amazing, but I thought it was quite funny in places as well. Some of the humour is quite funny as well. The interplay between Lee Marvin's character and Clint Eastwood's character is actually quite funny in places. I thought was quite good. Lee Marvin, as I say, plays a drunkard in this film, which is actually quite bang on to how he was actually during the film. He was pretty smashed while making this film, even though he actually did get on well with everybody and got on well with the director. Joshua Logan, I believe, directed this one. He was absolutely smashed out. He would often be drunk anyway, not because he was doing it for the character, but just I think because Lee Marvin liked to drink. It was as simple as that. So his character in Paint Your Wagon is pretty close to how Lee Marvin was on set nearly every day. And he has some funny lines in this film, Lee Marvin, and it's a good part. He does carry this film. A little over the top in places, I have to say. I thought Lee's performance at times was a little over the top, but in some scenes I thought was quite funny. And Lee Marvin, of course, and Clint Eastwood, they both do their own singing in this film. Lee Marvin, of course, sang amongst a couple of other songs. His main solo song in Paint Your Wagon is Wandrin Star, and that was released as a single back in 1969, and it reached #1 in the UK singles chart. Gene Seberg didn't have anything nice to say about Lee Marvin's singing voice. That's because he couldn't really sing. Bless him. But Wandrin Star, perhaps the most famous song from this musical, and he had a #1 hit with it. So there you go. Clint Eastwood has a better voice. He's a musician anyway. We know that. I mean, Clint, as well as being a filmmaker and director, he's also a very, very talented musician, a very, very, very talented one. Plays piano, plays a lot of blues and jazz, and he can sing to a degree. He has quite a nice voice, Clint Eastwood. 3 songs. I can't remember the first one that he sings, I must admit, but the other 2 are I Talk to the Trees, most famously, and the other being Gold Fever. And for me, I Talk to the Trees, he sings that really well. There were 1 or 2 moments that a little bit shaky, and perhaps they could have used a different take, for some of the lines. But on the whole, he has quite a pleasant voice to listen to. Not the best singing voice I've ever heard, but at times a very pleasant one. And he does sing in tune for the most part, so give him credit for that. There is an actor, the actor who plays the character that sings "They Call the Wind Mariah," by far and wide. He must have had Broadway background, because he's got an incredible voice. And that is certainly, as far as the singing is concerned, that is the highlight of the film on the singing front, and that is the gentleman who sings "They Call the Wind Mariah." So there we go. It didn't receive very very good reviews at the time. It wasn't well received. It's a well-known musical without it being overly celebrated. For me, there are some good moments in Paint Your Wagon, not enough of them. It's too long for me at 2.5 hours. Other musicals work better at 2.5 hours. This one doesn't. The performances are fun for the most part, and it was well worth. It was worth checking out, but it's not great. It's not brilliant, but it's worth checking out for a couple of hours if you want to kill a couple of hours. Check it out, but don't be expecting too much, other than just by enjoying the songs, enjoying the scenery. That's the best thing about it, really. So anyway, I hope you like that. That was Paint Your Wagon from 1969. And yeah, as I say, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back very, very soon for another review. So take care, stay well, and keep safe, and I will see you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.